This video is brought to you by SteelSeries and their award-winning range of headsets, one of which I switched over to very recently and I've been absolutely loving it. To learn more, stick around to the end of the video. Hello, today I'm here to shine a light on a little-known upcoming title that you probably haven't heard of before, Elden Ring, from an upstart studio by the name of Software. No, sorry, from Software? That doesn't make sense. Alright, stop joking around, shill up, this is serious. This is Elden Ring we're talking about here, a game first revealed approximately 12 years ago in the year 2019. After that, FromSoft went agonizingly radio silent as they set to work on their next opus, only to emerge again 4 months ago with a gameplay reveal showcasing the open world adventure we've all been waiting for since we first stepped foot in the Firelink Shrine all those years ago. Or for the cool kids like myself, the Nexus before that. Speaking of which, because this is a FromSoft title, and because this is actually the first time I've ever done a dedicated FromSoft video on my channel, I feel it necessary to credential myself before you, so you can properly calibrate your level of hostility toward me. I'm hoping for low, but I'll settle for moderate. I've played all of the FromSoft Souls-likes. I've played Demon Souls on the PS3 first, before Dark Souls, and then went on to play and platinum Dark Souls. After that came Dark Souls 2, and Bloodborne, and Dark Souls 3, and Sekiro. Admittedly, I haven't actually played Demon Souls on the PS5, but I'll get to that one day. Outside of that, I've played pretty much every Souls-like I can get my hands on. The Surge 1 and 2, and Ashen, and Neo 2, etc. And all those games that borrow Souls-like elements. Hollow Knight, Darksiders 3, Remnant from the Ashes, and Pokemon. Look it up. Bottom line, I love this style of game and I could not be more excited for Elden Ring because FromSoft not only invented this formula, but they are still the undisputed masters of it. Nearly 13 years after the release of Demon Souls, and FromSoft remain unsurpassed, a fact that will become immediately self-evident when you yourself finally lay hands on Elden Ring. My time with the game was based on early access to the closed network test, where I played on Xbox Series X. I was able to roam around the lands between for as long as I pleased, carefully surveying every inch of the landscape, fighting every foe I could find, and picking up everything that wasn't nailed down. As such, this video will contain spoilers for a lot of stuff, so if you want to go in completely blind, then do not watch or listen to this video. This demo showcases a surprising amount of content. I went in expecting a tiny slice of the game. What I got was an absolutely gigantic area that I spent over 6 hours exploring my first time through, killing a total of 8 unique bosses, both before and in the castle that dominates the distant horizon. It's very difficult for me to describe just how much I enjoyed this, because to state it plainly makes it sound underwhelming. It is open world Dark Souls, and I think a lot of people are going to listen to that descriptor and hear something pejorative, as though Elden Ring simply takes a formula that already works, puts it in a big open field, adds a horse, and calls it a day. But I think anyone who really understands how these games work, or how good open world games work, is going to be so thoroughly impressed at the many changes that FromSoft have made to their formula to make it work in an open world setting, while still feeling authentically FromSoft. My key takeaway from my time with the game is that FromSoft, despite never having made an open world game like this before, understand the open world genre more deeply than 95% of studios making open world games. I knew they could deliver a brilliant Souls-like, but my 10 hours with the opening section of the game has given me so much confidence that they're on track to deliver a brilliant open world game as well. I never really had any doubt, but so far Elden Ring is exactly what I'd hoped it would be. From the moment you step out onto the lands between, you feel immediately enthralled by the scale and otherworldliness of it. The towering spectral tree in the distance, ruined stone monuments strewn about its landscape, the color palette which somehow manages to be both bright and sullen at the same time. That first moment of arrival felt like seeing Anor Londo for the first time, or rounding that corner to see Majula. The difference here is that this space is truly open world, rather than the more linear or hub-based design of previous FromSoft games. If you had wondered whether the lands between might have just been a fig leaf to conceal a more familiar approach to level design, then worry not. This is the real deal. Everything you see before you, you can go there, and not in the Todd Howard sense. You can actually go there. It's a massive space to explore, and I began doing so on foot, just walking around, seeing what's up. I quickly came upon some birds, and I thought they might be enemies, but it turns out these are just the local fauna that I'll passively hunt throughout my journey, picking through their remains for crafting materials. Eventually, I'll meet this lovely lady who'll grant me Torrent, a trusty steed that can be summoned at will. There are some restrictions to this. He can't be summoned indoors, and he seems to despawn when you're invaded, though I can't 100% confirm this as I was only ever invaded by NPCs. Torrent handles beautifully, so quick to mount, so easy to control, such a great sensation of speed when you hit the dash button to spur him on. He also double jumps, which does provide additional height over your personal jump, meaning that Torrent can allow you to reach places you otherwise couldn't without him. You can also engage in mounted combat, but in typical FromSoft fashion, this is not easy. The left and right shoulder buttons allow you to swing either to the left or the right, only the wind-up animations for each weapon need to be properly timed such that you're in the right position when the weapon swing occurs. Hit the button too early or late, or don't position Torrent correctly and your swing will miss. This takes a lot of practice to get right, but adds a lot of depth to mounted combat. It feels more rewarding to master this more analog approach, rather than having your character automatically hit everything you swing at. Cruising around the lands between on Torrent was such a joy because I was exploring this space, and that is such an important, operative word in open world game design, and yet very few open world games get this right. This is a world that is not grounded by its map markers or its copy and pasted outposts or roads and pathways guiding you to desired locations. In most open world games, there is this fear that you'll miss something the developers have created for you, so huge amounts of design work and game systems go into ensuring that you find it. When that occurs, you're no longer led by a sense of curiosity because you can trust that the game will lead you by the nose to all the things it wants you to find. It's not like that here in Elden Ring. The game is actively trying to hide things from you, such that the only way to be sure that you've found everything is to be led not only by your curiosity, but by your thoroughness. I explored every inch of this world in a way that I'd not done since Outer Wilds or Breath of the Wild. This here is the perfect example. This is a dungeon with a boss and some important upgrades in it, and it's just so hidden in the environment. Viewing it from afar, I might have thought, oh, nothing there, no need to walk over to that cliff face. It was only because I was so thorough that I was able to find this, and this exact thing occurred a handful of times throughout my playthrough. At the same time though, you can be a little too thorough. I don't want to create the impression that you are completely without handrails here in the lands between, because that certainly isn't the case. The bonfires, now called Grace, will sometimes shine with Grace's guidance, an arc of golden light that will point you towards your next objective. It's literally that, just a small bend of light to give you a gentle nudge, but it can be just enough if you find yourself at a loss for where to go next. There's also a map. It starts out blank, but each new Grace site or dungeon you discover is marked on it, and map fragments you find in the world will fill in the topography and landmarks for you. You can add markers to the map, and these will appear as pillars of light for you to move towards. The map does allow you to instantly fast travel to any Grace site, and this can be done anywhere in the open world, meaning you don't need to be at a Grace site to fast travel, but it can't be done in any dungeon. This fast travel system combined with Torrent made it feel so easy to move through this world, and I never for a moment felt bogged down by its size. One of the most interesting and important changes that From have made here is to the flask system. It's a subtle change, but it enables so much more exploration uptime and incentivizes you to engage enemies in the world rather than just run past them. The way it works is that your flasks will refill when you kill packs of enemies in the open world. Killing just one or two of them will do nothing, but killing an entire cluster of guards, or a pack of wolves, or a particularly challenging standalone enemy will grant you one or more flask charges. This was such a necessary change, since Souls-likes are often this war of attrition which you are destined to lose. Had this not been the case, departing a Grace site would have felt like an expedition that would invariably bring you back to that same Grace site when all of your health is expended. Instead, this modified push-forward combat model allows you to stay out in the world for vast spans of time, so long as you have courage enough to face enemies and claim the sustain they provide. As I continued to push forward into the lands between, eventually reaching the outer ramparts of Stormvale Castle, I continued to be stunned by how beautiful it is. I'm aware of the discourse complaining about the fact that Elden Ring doesn't look next-gen enough. Okay, whatever, I don't fucking care. This game looks incredible, and anyone that cares more about texture detail or reused door animations than they do art design really hasn't got their priorities straight. At the same time, I do want to give you a brief overview of how well this runs and any issues I encountered, since I think that's always important, especially if there are glaring issues that pop up. Like I said, I tested this on the Xbox Series X. I'm pleased to report that there was nothing I experienced that was a deal breaker or alarming. I did have one hard crash, but that was it in terms of stability issues. The most common issue I had was with flickering. This would typically occur with distant objects like tree foliage, but it would sometimes occur with nearby light sources. The other issue that occurs is pop-in. Now, I expected pop-in to occur on distant terrain because the draw distances here are massive, but it's actually the up-close pop-in that's a little surprising. Ground clutter and shrubbery as little as a few meters away can pop in, as can terrain effects at medium range. With a world as beautiful as this, I did find these instances of pop-in to be quite distracting. Elden Ring targets 4K 60 on the Xbox Series X, and I can't provide any specific data on that, but I can tell you that the frame rate did slip a little for me at times. Never too much, probably no lower than 45 to 50, but it did feel at times that the engine was struggling to render everything that was going on. I don't think this will be a problem for anyone running on latest gen consoles or PC, but I do wonder how this will run on last gen consoles. Finally, the one thing I was a little bit bummed about was load times. Near instantaneous loading is pretty common these days on latest gen consoles, and Elden Ring doesn't have that. I generally counted it at around 10 to 12 seconds to load after a death. That is by no means long, and it seems almost unreasonable to complain about it, but it is longer than what other games are achieving right now, and given how often you die in these games, instantaneous loading would have been a nice touch. Bottom line though, so far this looks technically sound, at least on the Xbox Series X. The graphical power of latest gen hardware is being put to use in more detailed character and enemy designs, a higher frame rate, more environment detail, a bigger world to explore, and vast draw distances. I'm sure we're going to see some bad faith comparison screenshots on Twitter, but I don't think anyone is going to be able to seriously argue that Elden Ring isn't an extraordinary looking game. This was perhaps the defining moment of my time with Elden Ring, and it was very emblematic of my broader experience. I just dispatched a low-level foe when I hear something in the distance, and I quickly pan my camera around to reveal this mighty dragon crashing down. This was so soon after I'd begun my journey, and I knew I wasn't ready to take him on yet, so I kept my distance and I just watched from afar. But eventually, I noticed that he started watching me. I wasn't sure at this point if he was really watching me or if he was just kind of looking in my direction, but eventually he started moving toward me, and yet I still wasn't sure if he was following me or if he just had an automated patrol path. But eventually I realized, yeah, this thing was hunting me. It's easy to be impressed by the majesty of a dragon suddenly appearing as you're just going about your business, but it was these smaller things that really impressed me, like the fact that I could hear this guy coming before I saw him. The sound design of this world will often alert you to distant threats because it wants to warn you about things you can't see, or it wants to pull you towards distant foes. The groan of a monster hundreds of meters away out of your line of sight is just as important in enabling exploration and discovery as are the Grace's guidance, or the ruined structures you see in the distance. The behavior of this dragon as he peered at me was his most chilling quality. It's like I could see his gears turning as he stalked towards me. In displaying that sort of behavior, he takes on an intelligence that your average open-world roaming monster doesn't demonstrate. And the thing is, he's not alone. Most of the enemies in Elden Ring have vision cones, and they will spy you from afar as though trying to discern in you a friend or foe. And if you stand there long enough, they'll eventually figure it out and bare fangs. This makes the world seem so much more alive and authentic because these foes feel less like automated turrets with set patrol paths and aggro radiuses. They feel alive. That's how this whole world feels, to be honest, alive. I stood here surveying it with my spyglass and I could see the great convoy in the distance. Hauled by two titans and with a band of wandering nobles in its wake, Where were they going and what were they guarding? Bosses like the Tree Sentinel will just be there out in the middle of nowhere, almost taunting you to face him. On a stretch of beach, I found this weird white pattern that would race around in a square as though an invisible creature were leaving big white footprints behind it. I still don't know what this is, by the way. Every inch of the lands between is teeming with this life and these mysteries waiting for you to confront them and solve them, or just avoid them altogether. And this is a really, really important point about Elden Ring, and I suspect it will be one of the central narratives about this game if this design philosophy is carried through the rest of the game. No FromSoft game has ever given you so much choice about what to do and how to do it. I'm so fucking tired of the Dark Souls difficulty debate. It's so boring because it always focuses on really dull instruments, like enemy health or damage output or whatever, and the idea that there should be a toggle or a slider or an easy mode or something. All that's fine, by the way. I'm not saying that any of those things are bad. I'm just saying that clearly FromSoft are not interested in any of that stuff. So any discourse that tries to drag them toward it is just a waste of time. Elden Ring is easily the most accessible FromSoft game I've ever played, not because they were interested in making it easy, but because they were interested in providing the player with options, allowing them to set for themselves how difficult the game might be. Avoiding a pack of enemies out in the open world is a basic example. You don't get the runes they drop or the treasure they might be guarding, but most of the open world challenges can be avoided altogether should you choose. Enemies also leash, meaning that they'll stop pursuing you after a while if you run away from them after you've aggroed them, and this includes bosses like the dragon from earlier. Stealth is a very big deal in Elden Ring. Hitting the left control stick will put you in crouch position, significantly reducing the sound you make and making you all but invisible when in tall grass or shrubbery. From there, you can move about an area and take out targets with critical backstabs. There are sentry enemies as well who will sound an alarm if you're spotted. Carefully targeting them first will make clearing out the rest of an encampment significantly easier and less risky. Summon magic is extremely potent, and it is a huge difficulty modifier. Throughout the world, you'll find or be able to purchase these spells, which are put in your item slot. They summon powerful NPC allies, like a pack of wolves or a group of wandering nobles. They were invaluable on this boss, since it's fighting not only two bosses at once, but also a bunch of smaller adds who can't be cleared prior to engaging. The nobles served as a distraction while I was able to take down smaller targets before turning my attention to the bosses themselves. These summons are separate from the co-op player summons where you can invite other players into your world to help you, a feature I tried to test but it never worked since the player count would have been just so small during this closed test window. Anyone who's ever been stuck on a Souls-like boss knows how helpful having someone else in there can be, and Elden Ring lets you do that. Magic. Okay, let's talk about magic. So, back in the day, I mean like Demon Souls, magic was super strong, to the point where we were all kind of like, okay, maybe that's not a good way to play the game, kind of makes it a bit too easy. I think FromSoft themselves kind of agreed with that perspective, which is why they took a big step back from magic in Dark Souls and Bloodborne and Sekiro. Elden Ring re-embraces magic like we haven't seen since Demon Souls, and it's absurdly strong, at least in the early game. I don't know how it's going to scale later on, but yeah man, let me put it this way. I went a hybrid melee caster class just to see how the game was going to approach magic, to like sort of dip my toe in, and after 1 or 2 hours, I was basically exclusively relying on my spells because they were just so strong. And I would get DMs from other people playing the game in early access telling me that they were spending hours on bosses or just couldn't kill them at all, and I would literally kill those same bosses on like my second attempt without breaking a sweat because magic was just so damn strong. It's strong for a few reasons. Firstly, most of it can be cast at range and auto-tracks your target, meaning it doesn't take a lot of skill to use it. Secondly, its base damage is just really high. Thirdly, there are specific spells that are called Ashes of War, which you can imbue your weapon with. Doing so will provide a hugely powerful effect that scales with different stats. See those daggers floating around me? That's a spell I applied to my weapon, and I use it by hitting the left trigger. I applied another to my shield, which created hallowed ground beneath me that would heal me over time. And that was on top of the normal spells I could cast with my staff, as well as the summonable allies I mentioned earlier. Topping all of this off is the fact that you have a lot of mana to play with because you have dedicated mana flasks, just as you have health flasks, and you can decide how many charges go to health versus mana. So if you're going a full melee build and you never want to cast a spell, then you can put all your charges into health. But if you're going a full caster build and you feel really confident that you'll be okay casting spells at a distance, you can put more charges into mana, giving yourself even more mana to play with. If magic does remain this powerful all the way through, I expect that many people will kind of look down their nose at magic the same way we did back in the Demon's Souls days. But I think we've come a long way since then, and I think we've learned that the point of a FromSoft game isn't to beat it, but to play it. With this suite of options, full frontal assault, stealth, magic focus build, summons, FromSoft have deepened the role-playing and replayability that is the hallmark of their games. The byproduct of all of that is that this game could be made significantly easier for you should you choose. If you want to go a full melee, no magic, no summons, max aggression, kill everything you see, playstyle, and build, you can do that. Similarly, if you want to rely on magic, summon allies, summon your friends, play from the back, stealth a lot, you can do that too. Neither approach is more legitimate than the other since FromSoft built both for us to enjoy. I think that more people should play FromSoft games. I want more people to experience this brilliance, but many find them to be impenetrably difficult. If all of this holds for the full release, I'm going to be really glad to know that more people will have the opportunity to experience this without any of the challenge being lost for players who choose to play Elden Ring on the harshest, most uncompromising terms it allows for. There is a lot I have not spoken about in this video because there's just too much to talk about. I mean, for real, I haven't talked about melee combat and the jump attacks. There's a jump button, by the way, and the additional movesets that open up when you hold a one-handed weapon with two hands, or the item crafting, or the special flask that you find that lets you mix and match ingredients to make special buffing flasks, or this weird plant enemy that I found, and so much more. I can't believe that all of this was a demo. The most important question that you can make me ask in any exploration or open world game is, what's over there? Most open world games we play don't prompt that question, but Elden Ring forces you to ask and answer that question every second you're in its world. Just a few minutes spent on the lands between is enough time to realize that this is a space worth exploring. Critically, FromSoft have confidence enough in what they've built to rely on your curiosity to push you not only forward, but up and down and left and right and over and under. They're not worried that you're going to miss something because they trust that you'll want to go looking for it. And you will. You definitely will. The fact that this model of exploration and discovery exists alongside this extraordinary art design and FromSoft's esoteric storytelling and the classic Souls-like combat that is the bedrock foundation of this experience, it's a package that, yeah, I really fucking love this game, okay? I really do. Elden Ring is out next year, February 22nd for Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. I suspect it's going to be a very good video game. Guys, you will remember that earlier in this video I referenced the way that FromSoft are using audio in this game to enable exploration and discovery. Well, that's all well and good, but if you aren't using a set of headphones up to the task, then you won't get to experience any of that. Enter SteelSeries with their range of award-winning high-fidelity headsets for PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. I made the jump to SteelSeries headsets about 2 months ago after having used the same headset for literally 5 years or more. I am not someone that likes change. I have bought the same pair of jeans every year for like the last 10 years of my life. I don't know what I'm going to do if they stop making those jeans. I'll probably just stop wearing pants. Anyway, the point of that story is to say that I don't like change, but I've absolutely loved the SteelSeries headsets I've been using. Both the Arctis Pro Wireless for PC and PlayStation, and the Arctis Prime, which I use for Xbox. Obviously, they look very smart, and they are the most comfortable headsets I've ever put on, owing to their overall fit and that adjustable top band. But most importantly, they produce phenomenal sound. SteelSeries headsets are unlike most other gaming headsets because they offer true high-fidelity grade grade audio, meaning that you're hearing more sound than what other headsets can produce, and that sound is more authentic and accurate. They also have so many quality of life features that I really value. Some of the models have a digital audio controller allowing you to plug in multiple sound sources, which is great for someone like myself who wants to have these plugged into a PC and a PS5 at the same time. The model I use also has a replaceable battery, which is amazing. I charge one in the dock while using the other, and when it runs out, I can immediately hot swap it, no downtime whatsoever. SteelSeries make premium grade peripherals and headsets used at every level of play, from casual gamer right through to esports pros. In fact, more prize money has been won using SteelSeries peripherals than any other manufacturer. It's top shelf stuff, that's why I use it, that's why I think you should check it out. I'm going to leave a link to the SteelSeries website below, and if you want to grab the same SteelSeries headset I'm using for yourself, I'll leave a link to that below as well. Thanks SteelSeries for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down, so I know to do better for next time. If you enjoyed yourself, consider subscribing, and if you really enjoyed yourself, maybe consider hitting that notification bell so you never miss a video. You can see my patrons here on the left. They're awesome. They're amazing. If you want to join them, check out my Patreon page. Thank you again. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.